sweet like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.
All right, so let's dive into all this DOGE dividend buzz going around.
Yeah.
You've probably seen some headlines, I bet, about like these potential $5,000 checks floating around.
Right.
And thought to yourself, wait, is this real?
Yeah,
Is this really happening? Am I really going to get one?
absolutely. A lot of people are talking about it.
Yeah. Well, for today's deep dive, we're going to be looking at this article from As USA.
Okay.
And the title's a good one. It's called Are DOGE Checks the New Stimulus Checks?
Oh, wow.
So it's all about this proposal that's tied to Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency,
Uh-huh.
DOGE,
Right.
which aims to cut the U.S. deficit.
Yeah.
But here's the thing.
Okay.
This whole dividend idea, it didn't actually come from the government.
That's right.
Interesting, right?
Yeah. It originated from just this guy, James Fishback. He's a 30-year-old investor.
Yeah.
And he posted on social media suggesting that 20% of whatever savings DOGE ends up achieving
Okay.
should just go straight back to taxpayers as a dividend.
And to get this, Elon Musk himself, responded to this guy,
Wow.
saying he'd check with the president about it.
Really?
And then just a couple days later, former President Trump actually talked about the idea at some summit.
He did.
He was quoted as saying, and I quote, thinking about giving 20% back to the American people and using another 20% to pay off debt.
Wow. So when we're saying give money back to taxpayers,
Right.
who exactly are we talking about here? Is it every single person in the country?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
The article just says eligible taxpayers,
Okay.
which is kind of vague.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it would be similar to those stimulus checks,
Yeah.
where they had certain income limits and other criteria.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But we'd need more specifics from the proposal to know for sure.
Okay, so it seems like there's at least high-level interest in this whole DOGE dividend thing.
Yeah, definitely some buzz going around.
But I'm curious, how much money are we actually talking about?
Yeah.
Could this really mean a $5,000 check for people?
So according to the article, DOGE is trying to get about $2 trillion in savings
Okay.
through all their different initiatives and stuff.
$2 trillion. That's
That's a lot of money.
yeah, I can't even imagine that much money.
Huge.
So if they actually hit that target, 20% for the dividend would be what, $400 billion?
Billion with a B.
Right, a capital B.
Yeah, so how do we get from that giant pile of money to an actual $5,000 check?
Well, you just got to divide it up.
Oh, okay.
The article estimates something like 79 million eligible taxpayers in the U.S.
Okay.
So you take the $400 billion, divide it by those 79 million people, and boom,
Okay.
you get a potential $5,000 check for every eligible taxpayer.
Wow. That's
Pretty impressive math, huh?
I'm a little skeptical, though.
Yeah,
Getting $2 trillion in government savings, that seems really hard.
it does.
And even if they somehow do that, will Congress really go for this whole dividend thing?
Yeah, you're right to be skeptical. There are definitely a lot of hurdles to consider.
Yeah, they don't always agree on things.
And congressional approval is definitely a big one. And the article does say there's some pushback already from some Republicans who are worried about inflation.
Oh, yeah, inflation, right?
They're worried that if you put more money into the economy,
Mm-hmm.
prices are just going to keep going up.
Yeah, I've definitely heard that argument before.
They think that those old stimulus checks
Yeah.
contributed to prices going up, so they might not want to support another round of direct payments.
Interesting. So even if DOGE hits their savings target, actually getting that money back to the taxpayers,
Right.
that's a whole other battle.
Exactly. And here's another thing we don't even know for sure. They'll hit that $2 trillion in savings.
Right.
That's based on projections and assumptions about how effective all their cost-cutting measures are going to be.
Yeah.
And a lot can happen between now and then.
Didn't the article mention something about DOGE workers getting asked back?
Yes.
That could mess with their whole savings plan, right?
Yeah. You're right on track. It seems like some of those initial layoffs they did weren't as straightforward as planned, and some workers are being asked to come back.
Oh, wow.
And this could definitely impact their projected savings.
Yeah, for sure. So it doesn't sound like this whole DOGE dividend is a sure thing.
Right. It's we're missing some puzzle pieces,
Yeah.
It's definitely exciting to think about what could happen.
Uh-huh.
But we got to be realistic about the challenges too.
So, okay, let's say hypothetically
Okay.
that DOGE does hit their savings target somehow.
Right.
Congress is on board with the dividend.
Yes.
And these $5,000 checks actually end up in our mailboxes.
Okay.
Then what? What would actually happen?
That's when things get really interesting.
Okay.
Economically speaking, if all this cash suddenly floods in it, it could have like a ripple effect.
Okay.
Some people might use the money to pay off debt, which is good for their finances.
Right.
But it might not really impact the whole economy that much.
Okay, so what about the people who don't have debt or choose to spend the money instead?
Well, if a lot of people start spending that money all at once, it could lead to more demand for things.
Yeah.
Like goods and services.
Uh-huh.
And you know what that means? More inflation.
So it's a double-edged sword.
Exactly.
It's good to stimulate the economy, but if you do it too much too fast, it could backfire and cause prices to go up even more.
Exactly. It's all about finding that balance.
And remember, those Republicans who were worried about inflation,
Mm-hmm.
this is exactly what they're afraid of.
Yeah, this would play right into their concerns.
So this whole DOGE dividend is way more complicated than it seemed at first.
Definitely.
It's not just about like sending out checks.
Right.
It's about thinking through all the potential consequences, good and bad.
Absolutely. It's crucial to go beyond just the headlines.
Yeah.
And really dig into the details.
Okay, but let's be honest for a sec.
Okay.
It's still pretty tempting to imagine what I'd do with an extra $5,000.
I hear you. And you know what? Even if this DOGE dividend thing doesn't actually happen, just thinking about it can be pretty valuable.
How so?
It forces you to think about what's important to you. Like, what are your priorities?
Oh, I like that.
Right.
So it's like a little financial thought experiment,
Exactly.
even if it's hypothetical.
Yeah. Just imagine you suddenly had $5,000.
Okay.
Would you invest it? Pay off some debt?
Yeah.
Maybe finally go on that dream vacation you've always wanted?
Or something else entirely.
Right. Thinking through those choices can help you get a better sense of your goals and what you really value.
You're right. It's easy to get excited about the possibility of free money.
It is.
But if you take a step back and think about how you'd actually use it, it can be really insightful.
And here's another thing to think about.
Yeah.
This whole DOGE dividend conversation. It's bringing up some really important questions about how the government spends money and how efficient it is.
You mean like if they can save trillions of dollars,
Right.
should they give some of it back to the people?
Exactly. It makes us question what the government's role is and what it owes to its citizens.
Where does all this money come from?
Right.
And where should it go?
These are all important questions, even if the answers aren't easy.
So it's like this DOGE dividend is making us have all these bigger conversations. Yeah. Even if we never see those checks, it's making people think about government spending, and potential savings and where all that money could go.
Exactly. And that's a good thing.
Right.
Just getting people engaged and asking those questions, that's valuable in itself.
For a while, I was really caught up in that fantasy of like, what if I get $5,000?
Yeah. Yeah.
But honestly, now I'm more interested in the big picture.
Okay.
Like, what if this whole DOGE dividend idea actually starts a movement towards, more government accountability and transparency?
No, it's up.
Yeah.
Now, that's an interesting thought.
Right.
Like, what if this becomes the norm?
Yeah.
That whenever the government saves money, they have to give some of it back to the people.
Yeah.
It could lead to people paying more attention to government budgets and pushing for them to be more efficient.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Instead of just accepting things the way they are.
Right.
Citizens start getting more involved in making sure the government is spending their money responsibly.
It's a powerful idea.
It really is.
And it shows how even these crazy ideas, like this whole DOGE dividend, can have effects that go way beyond the original idea.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into this DOGE dividend thing, what's the main takeaway for our listeners?
Don't just believe everything you read.
Okay.
Dig deeper, ask questions, and don't assume anything.
Yeah.
This whole DOGE dividend thing with all its complications and uncertainty, it's a perfect example of why it's so important to think critically.
It's easy to get caught up in the hype, It
is.
Whether it's about potential money or government stuff.
Right.
But it's important to step back and really think about the information and come to your own conclusions.
And remember, this is just one part of a much bigger issue. This whole conversation about how the government spends money, how efficient it is, and whether it's accountable to the people.
Yeah.
It's a conversation that's going to keep going.
Right.
So stay involved, stay informed, and speak up.
So to sum up, the DOGE dividend is a pretty interesting idea.
Yeah.
It has some potential benefits, but also a lot of obstacles to overcome.
Right.
But more importantly, it started this conversation about government accountability and the possibility of giving some savings back to the people.
And that's a conversation worth having, even if those $5,000 checks never happen.
I agree. Well, this has been a really insightful deep dive into the DOGE dividend and everything it means.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
It was my pleasure.
Always great to explore these complicated topics with you.
Likewise.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive into some of the world's most interesting ideas.
Sounds good.
Until then, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
Sound the alarm. I'm coming up. We'll have the ball. I'm sweet like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till